Okay, so any administrative issues before we start? Okay, I'd like to begin with a nod of the head to Vasily Leontiev. You met Leontiev earlier in this course when we talked about the Leontiev utility functions. The Leontiev utility functions that we talked about are actually something that Leontiev devised for thinking about production, and we'll revisit those production functions a little bit later. Here's a quote from Leontiev that has nothing to do with his production functions at all, but does have to do with technological change, and in particular has to do with. Instead has to do with the possible effects of technological changes on the relative recurrence of different factors. So here's a quote from Leontiev. He observes that the role of humans as the most important factor of production is bound to diminish. So that's a statement about a marginal rate of technical substitution. In the same way that the role of horses in agricultural production was first diminished and then eliminated by the introduction of tractors. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to begin today with a short example that'll build on the work we did last time in developing a cost function for the firm. And so what I have in mind here are just a few simple facts. You can find these aren't very difficult to discover facts. You can go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and get data on manufacturing wages, which is what I did yesterday. And I found that the average manufacturing wage in China in 2009 was around $1.50 an hour, while in the same year for the U.S., the average manufacturing wage was $22 an hour. So there's a big difference in one of the input factors that we've been, when we write down these production functions that depend on capital and labor. This is telling us that the cost of one of those inputs is much higher in the U.S. Than it is in China. So labor in particular for manufacturing is many times more expensive in the U.S. Than it is in China. Okay, so that's one fact. Another fact I found was that in 2010, if we look at the production of photovoltaic cells, or modules rather, so these are the things that get produced to generate electricity that people put on their roofs, or they come in smaller packages and larger as well. China has really pushed to become the dominant manufacturer of photovoltaic cells over the last decade. So they are by far the leading producer worldwide. That's happened pretty recently. Anyway, the production for China in 2010 for PV modules was 3782 megawatts, while for the U.S. Production was 587 megawatts. So a big difference in manufacturing wages, also a big current difference in output. So I'd like to use those numbers right now, along with the cost function that we worked with on Tuesday, to think a little bit about differences in production of PV cells across the U.S. and China. So here's what I have in mind. Let me first of all remind you, we had worked with a Cobb-Douglas production function last time. So we assumed that y was equal to some technological parameter a times some input x1 raised to the alpha 1, some other input x2 raised to the alpha 2. So that's production. And we found that a firm that was going to minimize costs that had this production function had a cost function that looked like this. Depends on the amount of output it's going to produce, depends on input costs. And what we worked out was that we could write the cost function like this, y divided by a, so total output divided by this technological parameter, times w1 to the alpha 1, w2 to the alpha 2, this whole thing raised to the 1 over alpha 1 plus alpha 2, and then multiplied times the constant that I named last time, h of alpha. So this is some constant that depends on alpha 1 and alpha 2, but nothing else. All right, so that's all. This is all just from last time. Now, what I'd like to do now is to think about the problem facing a firm located in the U.S. versus a problem facing a similar firm located in China. So what are the salient differences, do you suppose? Yes, Luke. Yeah, so, okay, that's good. So the one I'm highlighting right here is the very large difference in the cost of manufacturing, skilled manufacturing labor. There are, for sure, some other differences as well. There are differences in the regulatory climate. There's a sort of possible trade fight brewing over possible subsidies that might be offered to Chinese firms versus U.S. firms, and that's been sort of in the news the last week. But for sure those are salient. The wages are for sure salient. The subsidies are a matter of dispute. We might want to ask ourselves whether or not we see whether there is a big role for subsidies and change in costs here. And that's something we can return to in a moment. Okay, so let me remark upon an important difference between capital and labor in models like this. And so when we're thinking about production at the level of the country, and the salient difference is that capital is pretty mobile. So in particular, investors in the U.S. or anywhere else in the world can make investments in Chinese manufacturing. China has the largest foreign direct investment of any country in the world now, so foreigners do invest a lot in China. So capital is said to be mobile. On the other hand, labor is not so mobile. If it's difficult for a manufacturer, for a citizen of China who's earning a manufacturing wage of $1.50 an hour, it's difficult for them to move to the U.S. and earn $22 an hour instead. And you can imagine if it were easier, there'd probably be a large migration. Okay. So the stylized fact here is capital is mobile, labor is not. So I'll return to that in a moment. Okay. Actually, maybe I'll return to it right now. So let me say something about these W's. So I'm going to think about input 1 being labor. So let x1 be just that. And so I'm going to write a number which is W1 US, and it's going to be $22 an hour. There's another number, W1C for China. That's equal to $1.50 an hour. There's another price kicking around here. This is W2. We'll think about this as being the price of labor. But because, so X2 is equal to capital. But because capital is mobile, would we expect there to be big differences in the price of W2 across the U.S. and China? So no. If there were big differences, then investors could take advantage of the difference. And to the extent there are differences, they do. That's why there is a lot of FDI in China. Yes. We'll come back to subsidies. We'll set subsidies to the side right now. Yes, that's a good question. Though. So right now, let's suppose that there's no government subsidy involved on either side, and we'll come back to that. Okay. All right. So those are some salient facts here. I'm going to go ahead and use these facts. So X2 is capital, W2 is the price of capital. We're going to assume this is constant across the two countries. So the cost of capital same in U.S. and China. All And there's no doubt that that's not strictly true. I mean, we can look at interest rates in China or returns to investment across the two countries, and for sure we'll be able to find differences. But for sure they're not going to be on the order of 22 to 1.5. They'll be more on the order of a very fraction of a percent. Capital is good at seeking higher returns. Okay, so this is our setup. We've got a cost function that looks like this. We've got some prices to put in here. I want to think now about the problem facing two different firms, one located in the U.S. and one located in China. And the sort of key here is going to be to notice that if you're a Chinese manufacturer or a U.S. manufacturer, and again, we're setting aside subsidies or other kinds of regulatory things that advantage firms, it's going to have to be the case that the cost of production for the Chinese firm and the U.S. firm, actually, what can we say about the cost of production across the two firms in the absence of subsidies? Pretty competitive industry. Can the costs be very different across the two? Yes, so somebody said yes, I think. Who was the... Let's hear the argument. Okay, so if it were the case that... okay, so let me back up. So it could be the case that costs were much lower in China. That's a possibility. In which case we expect there to be maybe no production in the U.S., at least in the long run, yeah.
So you're asking about the cost of the different, considering production outputs.
Yeah, that's right. So what... That's correct. So, actually, the cost we're going to wind up caring about will be the total cost of producing the quantity Y that's produced in either country. Okay, so here's where I'm headed. I think both of your comments have sort of anticipated this. The claim here is that cost in China we can write as some cost function that will depend on what I'll write as Y sub C. So that's eventually going to be this number here, 3782. So the cost in China of this producing this amount of output Y sub C, given prices W sub C in China, if this production in both countries must not be very different from the cost in the U.S. Okay, so the cost in the U.S. will be C of Y US W is how I'll write that. So if there are firms in the U.S. that are able to compete with firms in China, it must be the case that they don't have a huge cost disadvantage, given the amount they produce and given the price they produce. All right, is that setup clear? Okay, so I want to go ahead and think about this and see what I can say about the relative costs and the underlying technologies that both countries must be facing. So here's how I'm going to proceed. I'm going to go ahead and use this equality and substitute it into this cost function, and then plug in some of these numbers, and we'll see whether or not this is sort of seems plausible given the outputs we observe and the relative prices that these different firms face. Yes, Scott?
So because W2 is constant,
We're not. This is a vector. This WUS is 1 and 2. It's going to wind up. We're going to assume it's constant, and you'll see in a moment it's going to wind up canceling out of the expression when we get there. But no, it's cost of capital for sure matter for both firms. But if the cost of capital is the same for both firms, it can't be the source of a relative advantage or disadvantage. That's all. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and look at this. So I'm going to take that boxed expression. I'm going to plug in the two cost functions we talked about. So I'm going to write this as China on the left. So I'm going to call this Y sub C. I'm going to let A be different across the two countries. Also, this technological parameter. One thing that's true about U.S. manufacturing is that U.S. manufacturing overall is more productive than any other manufacturing sector in the world. So if you computed A for the entire U.S. economy, you get a bigger A than you did for other countries. So I don't know if that's true for PV production or not. One possibility is that even though China has extremely low manufacturing wages, maybe U.S. technology for producing PV modules is superior, and so that might be a source of advantage for the U.S. So that's something we'll be able to sort of examine in a little bit. But anyway, we're going to allow these things to be different. Okay, so that we've got this. This is raised to the 1 over alpha 1 plus alpha 2 times W. Right, this is 1C for wages in China raised to the alpha 1 times W2, and this is remember the same across both countries, so I don't need to distinguish it. Raised to the alpha 2. Yes.
So the assume alpha 1 and alpha 2 are the same for both?
Yeah, I am actually. We can come back and sort of ask whether that would make a big difference. But yeah, I'm going to assume those are the same. Okay, and then there's of course this. This gets raised to the 1 over alpha 1 plus alpha 2. There's this constant HA, and then the claim is that the cost in China had better be roughly equal to the cost in the U.S. So we'll have a Y US over an A US 1 over alpha 1 plus alpha 2. W1 US to the alpha 1. W2 to the alpha 2, 1 over alpha 1 plus alpha 2, all times the same constant h of alpha. Okay, now my plan is just to do a little algebra and get rid of some of the stuff that doesn't affect the relative productivity of firms in the U.S. and China. So the first thing we can see is these h of alphas cancel. Once I've done that, I can raise both sides of this to the alpha 1 plus alpha 2 power and get rid of these ugly exponents. So let's go ahead and do this. So this implies that we have yc over ac times w1c to the alpha 1, w2 to the alpha 2, and that'll be equal to YUS divided by AUS, all times W1 US to the alpha 1, W2 to the alpha 2, and that's it. Okay, we can keep going. Since we're assuming that costs of capital vary across the two countries, W2 is equal, and the alpha 2s are the same, we can cancel out this, the W2 part. That gives us an expression which is YC over AC, and W1C to the alpha 1. That has to be equal to YUS over AUS, all times the W1 US to the alpha 1. Okay, is that all clear so far? The W2 is the cost of capital. That's the cost of capital. And because capital is mobile, we're assuming that it doesn't differ across the two countries. Okay, let me just rearrange this thing slightly. So I'm going to write this by, I'm going to divide both sides by YUS over AUS, and I'm going to divide both sides by W1C. So that's going to give me YC over AC divided by YUS divided by AUS equal to W1 US divided by W1 China all raised to the alpha 1. Okay, now this is the point where, so I've gotten this down to a nice expression. It's an expression where I actually have some numbers to plug in for several of these variables, not all of them. But I can start doing some stuff here to simplify this expression by plugging in some numbers. First of all, let me plug in the relative wages. So 22 divided by 1.5, according to my calculations, is where should I should move to another board? Try this one. So we'll have our y's here. It's going to be equal to. Let me just rewrite this on the board so I can use this board up here. Sorry. So just rewriting that, we have y China over y US times a US over a China. That's all going to be equal to W1 US divided by W1 C, all raised to the alpha 1. Okay, now I'm going to plug in some numbers. This is equal to about 14.67 raised to the alpha 1. This ratio of Chinese output to US output is equal to 6.44 approximately. So let's check that. Is that right? That's about right. Okay, so 6.44. This is times a US AC. So we've got three numbers now we don't know the values of. The first of those are these technological parameters, and the other one is this parameter alpha 1. I really don't have a good number to plug in for alpha 1. If we had access to the county data for various PV manufacturers, it wouldn't be hard to do because you could look at the payroll for the firm, and that would tell you something about the expenditures of that firm on labor, and you could look at their expenditures for capital. You could go back to the input demands that we derived last time and back out an estimate of alpha 1. I don't have this accounting data, but it might be something one could dig up. Instead, I'm going to use the number which is the average for U.S. manufacturing, and on average in U.S. manufacturing, alpha 1 is around 0.6. So that's roughly 60% of costs for U.S. producers accrue to labor. So that's where that number comes from. Okay, so we're going to take alpha 1 equal to 0.6. If alpha 1 is equal to 0.6, then this number over here is equal to about 5. So 14.67 raised to 0.6 is just about exactly 5. And so now what I want to do is divide both sides by 6.44. And before I do that, I'm going to tell you why I'm doing that. So one argument, so I said this before, so one story you might say is, why would you want to manufacture photovoltaic cells in the U.S.? Because manufacturing labor costs are so much cheaper in China. One possible answer is because the U.S. might have a big technological advantage. And so this is a check on that. So we'll go ahead and compute a number which is going to allow us to compare the U.S. technology to the Chinese technology. So here we go. So this implies that A U.S. Divided by A China is equal to 5 divided by 6.44, which, if my calculator doesn't lie, is approximately equal to 0.778. Okay. All right, so what does this tell us about the possible U.S. Argument that the U.S. has a technological advantage? It's the opposite. It looks from this calculation, at least, that the U.S. has a technological disadvantage, that the Chinese have a roughly 30% better A than we have in the U.S. Okay, so how did we get this? Where did this number come from? What's going into this? Well, just the numbers we chose up here, plus this guess about alpha 1. So the China has a very large advantage in terms of cost of manufacturing labor. That difference in manufacturing costs can't entirely account for the difference in output. China is producing even more output than they should be, given their relative to the U.S., given their advantage in terms of manufacturing labor costs. And so to account for the remaining differential in this framework, we have to say that China also has a technological advantage. Right, so that's the story here. Now, and I'm just going to talk about this briefly in passing. There's an alternative story one could tell, and this is a story that's been in the news the last week. And that's a story that China doesn't have a technological advantage, that they have roughly the same technology that the U.S. has, and that the extra production that they're producing is a consequence of subsidies that are being provided by the Chinese government instead of there being a technological advantage A. That's a possibility. I'll just observe, I guess, that the subsidy would have to be really large to account for. If we had the same value of A here, the subsidy would have to be extremely large to account for the difference we observe in output still. I would say sort of implausibly large. So to the extent that subsidies are important, and they can certainly be important to the profits of a particular firm, they're probably not that important to aggregate output of PV modules either in China or in the U.S. Yeah,
What if we had a difference in alpha 1?
Okay, it's a good question. So this is the number. I had data for all these numbers except this one, which I basically pulled out of a hat. So one thing you could do, and I haven't done this, but one thing you could quickly do is sort of play with this alpha and see if that produces radically different numbers. So you could say, well, what if alpha is as high as 0.7? What if it's as low as 0.5? That'd be sort of a reasonable range to play with. Another thing you could do is to go the other way. This is something else you could do. You could say, well, let's assume that the U.S. and China have exactly the same technology, the same A. Then you could go back here, set this equal to 1. Maybe we should just do this. So if A is the same, then this ratio is equal to 1. So we'd have 644 equal to 14.67 raised to the alpha 1. So somebody with a calculator, what we want here is we'll have alpha 1 times the log of 14.67 equal to 6.44. So what we want is alpha. Yeah, thank you. Who said that? Okay, an extra credit point here, please. Are you back there, Jeff? You got that? Jew. Okay. So alpha 1 equal to so the log of 6.44 divided by 14.67. You have a number for that? Did I make another mistake? Oh, I'm sorry. Everyone gets an extra credit point for that one. So, yeah.